Okay, so we'll talk about objects. What is object in JavaScript? How do we declare? What are different types of objects that we can declare in JavaScript? So in other programming language, we have an option where we create a class and then we have to create an object. Whereas in JavaScript, we can create an object in a different way, like different types. But what is basic JavaScript object is? So in JavaScript, basically objects is a collection of keys and value pair. This like keys and value pair can store any values. Either it can store like primitive values, it can store the methods as well, and also it can store the other objects inside the one objects as well. And there are several ways where we can create objects in Java. We'll see one by one, like how do we create objects in JavaScript? So there are several ways where we can create objects in JavaScript, not in Java. So one way is like object literals, which is like very straightforward way. Like it, like whenever we have to create an object literals, like using the literals, then we just have to write all the key value pair inside the curly braces, and it will be an object. It will be considered as an object literals. Then there is the second way is known as object constructor, which is also known as the using the constructor function. Third way is known as using the new object. That means using just a new operator, which we'll see in the session. Fourth way is by declaring the class, and fifth way is where we can create a factory functions, and also that will be considered as an object. Like that factory functions will basically return an object. So these are the 5 ways where we basically create objects in JavaScript. So we'll see one by one. The first one is known as object literals. So what is object literals? So object literals are basically used to create an object. And it says that they are defined using curly brackets, like curly braces, which is this one, and are used to define properties and methods of an object. So whenever you try to define an object in a literal way, it says that whatever the value, as we know, like objects a key value pair in JavaScript, that means one particular key will have one value, then other particular key will have other values, and so on. So it is basically like complete straightforward way to create a single object. So when do we use like object literals is whenever the use case, like real-time use case, used to be like whenever we have to create a single object or single instance of an object. At that point of time, we can declare the objects in a literal way. So what do we mean by single objects is like we have created example this, we have created an object which is again a key value pair, which is like name and then John, let's say age and 30. So this is again an object we have written inside the curly braces, right? So wherever you see like the value is inside the curly braces, you could consider that in JavaScript as an object. Now we see that this person, like let person. So person is a variable which is now working or considered is an, here it is considered as an object. So we can say that like, this particular object will only be created one times, because like, you can create other object using the similar type of using the other variable name, but this person will only be created one times by defining like this. It is not something that you can utilize. You can utilize this for multiple times, but this person object you can create only one time whenever you use let or const. So this says that you have already created a person, so you have to change the name, or you have to change the name of the variable or name of the objects to declare the same or other type of objects. But this says that whenever we have to use, basically object literals are commonly used when we need to create like configuration objects or single instance of an object. That is what, like this will only be created for one time. Only single instance of object will be created. That means only one time we'll be able to declare um, with the with this particular variable name. So as soon as you create and you have utilized inside the script, you will not be able to create with the same object name um, with different kind of values. So whenever you have to create the objects in literal way, you have to basically change the variable name. Okay. So the use case is like, when do we use this? Whenever we know that this particular objects we have to use, we have to create an object only one time, or we basically have to, you can use multiple times, but if you have to create an object only one time, then we can take the help of object literals. Okay. So if I talk about the definition of the object literals, it is like object literals, basically it is very straightforward way to create a single object. To basically create a single object, you have created a person and then that's it. You cannot create any other variable or objects using the name person. Okay, they are defined again using a curly braces and contains a key value pair. So whenever you see in JavaScript that there are something which is like this, which is key and value pair, you can consider that as an objects in JavaScript. Keys are basically used to be a string over here. So always this value will be string in the string format. Though we do not define inside a single quote or double quote, it will be internally converted as a single quotation or double quotation. That means this type will become string. You can see, like, whenever you hover on this, you can see what is the type. So it will give you property name as string. So it will automatically be considered as string. Whereas value can be any other values. Values can be like string, values can be numerical, values can be Boolean. So, okay. So this is how we basically create an object in object literal. So let's say if I talk about the syntax, how do we declare the syntax of object literals? Then it says that, let's say you can define a keyword, and then you can basically define a keyword, and then you say like object equals to, you have to start the curly braces, and then we can basically write key and then value one, key1 value one, value one. You can also make it in the next line. Then again key2, and it will be not equal, it will be basically colon value 2, and so on. As as we said, like, this object, like the literal objects, can also take a method. So if you want to declare a method, you can declare it as like this, like method, and then you can basically declare the functions over here, and then whatever we have to declare inside the function, that we can declare. So this is basic syntax of how do we declare an object in a literal way. Okay. So this is the syntax of how do we declare an object in a object literal way in JavaScript. Now we see here there is something called method as well, right? So if you see like this one, which is which we have created an object as a very simple object, which is just consisting of the name and age, right? Let's try to print it out, and then we can see whether this is working or not. So you can see here like this person.name is also displaying John, age is 30, and then this is also displaying as John. So there are two ways where we can access the values from the objects. One is like the identifier of the object that we have given, which is like person, and then you can use dot operator and then the key name. So this is object dot key name. Object name dot key name is the one way where you can get the value from. Second way is how do we get the value from array. So basically we define it as like array, then square bracket, and then index over here, right? So in the same way, um, from the object also we can get the value. How do we get the value from an object? Is like object name, whatever the object name that we have defined, then start a square bracket, and whatever the key that you have to get, you have to declare inside a string, like curly inside quotation. Okay, as we know that these value are like by default internally will be converted as string, so we have to define it in a string manner over here to get the value of whatever the value we are trying to get. Let's say if we are trying to get like age, we also have to give this particular value in string. The key in string value can be any value, but keys always says that it will be in a string format. Okay, so if you again try to print it out this value, you'll see the value it is printing as 30. But if you try to just give the name that you have given over there inside the object, then it will basically say that we do not know what is like age over there. So it says that age is not defined. Okay, because internally JavaScript considered the key as string. So you have to get the value, you have to make it as string value, like string key. Okay, getting the point?
Yes, bro.
Okay. So this is in a literal way where we define an object. And there are two ways that we can get the value from object. One is like object dot key name, and then object using a square bracket. As JavaScript considered the key as string by default, you have to define it as in a string way. Okay, so this was one way. And the use case for this, like when do we use this, is whenever we know in our script that we have to use this, we have to basically create a single object. At that point of time, we can go by declaring the objects in a literal way. Okay, now we'll see the second way of declaration of array. Like I hope object literals is clear for everyone.
Yes, Praveen.
Second way is by using like new object sim. So what happened here is this is also known as object constructor. So when we say object constructor, that means it says that you can basically create an object by using new operator and then create an object using object keyword. It says that the new object syntax basically creates an object. This object is a built-in available inside a JavaScript as object constructor. So this, whenever you say like something which is starting with the uppercase, right, which is like uppercase letter, which is here in terms of like object. So this basically considered as a constructor in JavaScript. Okay, so this says that using the object constructor, you can basically create an object in JavaScript. This is like the use case of this is very, very low. Like we, in the real time, we do not even use this. But just to understand, like there is a way where you can create an object using new object constructor as well, like by using new keyword and then object constructor. Okay, so it basically creates an empty array, and then by utilizing the object reference that will be providing as a variable, by using that, we'll be able to store the value inside this object. So the use case is very, very low that we use in the real time. But this particular object is used to create like a dynamic object whenever we do not know like what will be the properties inside the object, or what will be the property that we have to create inside an object. Keys, like that means like whatever the keys and value that we have to create inside an object, if we do not know those things beforehand, then we can create this object and dynamically we can store the value. So let's see how the syntax for this object is basically in real time. So let's say um, the syntax is something like, let's say, const keyword, then variable name, const keyword, variable name equals to, what we have to do is we have to use new object. Okay, so this object that you see is known as object constructor in JavaScript. We had seen the similar things at the time of creating the function where it was like known as the function constructor, which we had declared in this way, like function and then parenthesis. So wherever you see here, something is utilized in upper letter for the first word, like for upper letter for the first character, and that is basically known as like constructor in JavaScript. So here we have object constructor. In the function, we had seen like function constructor. Okay. Okay. So this is now here. So we have created an object by just in other programming language, this used to be a class. So whenever we have to create an object in other programming language, used to be like class name, other programming language in the sense, let's say Java. So how do we create an object is like class name equals to new class name. So in the same way here in also JavaScript, we can create by utilizing this. So here in JavaScript and Python, we do not require class name to be declared over here. We can basically declare a variable, and then by using new keyword, we can create an object in JavaScript. Okay. Now let's say if we have to define the properties for this properties in the sense like that will be inside a curly braces, which will be a key value pair. And our object is also known as a combination of key value pair. So if you have to define the properties of the object, then how do we define over here? So to define the properties over here, we have to say like object reference that we have given as a variable. So variable dot key1. So this will be stored as a key, and then this will be a value. Yeah. For second particular things, for second value, we can again use the same, which is like this one. And it can also take a method as well. So when we say like method, how do we declare it as like this? Okay, and then close the curly braces. For this one, okay, we have already closed. So this is how we declare. This is how we create constructor. This is how we create an object in a constructor way in JavaScript. So first we create an object over here, which will be completely empty. And then later on, at any point of time in this script, we can store the values, store the keys and values in the object. So this is where it says that this particular way of declaration of the object is used if we want to utilize the object in a dynamic way, or if you want to create the object in a dynamic way, then we can create this type of object like empty object, and later on we can add some of the value. There is very less use case, less times that we use in the automation, or in any, most of the time it will be utilized in the development of the JavaScript development. Okay, so this is basically the syntax of an object which is created in object constructor way. Okay, any question over here?
No, Praveen.
Okay. So before this, as like we have just gone through the definition and the syntax. Before this, I'll also give you an example over here, which says that it takes the method or the function inside an object, right? So this is again an optional, as we can see here, like we have not given anything, but you can also declare a function or method inside an object. So let's say if we have to just print the value, let's say if you have to just print the value name and age. So how can we do that is we can give it as, let's say, print and then console print, let's say, function. Okay. So how do we declare a function? You can also declare it as an anonymous way, but you can do this as print and then function. And then we just have to print it out over here. So we can use like this. And as we know that this is an object, right? So whenever you have to call property of an object inside a method, right? Whenever you have to call a property of an object, properties of an object inside a method, you basically have to use a keyword called as this. This basically refers that this basically refers that an object of the current class. Okay. So whenever you see like this keyword have been mentioned at any point of time, so you can say that this is basically considered as an object of the class or object of the current file or class. You can say, if you hover on this, you can say that this is exactly similar to what we have defined over here as person and then the value. So you can say like this person is getting replaced over there as a keyword called this. Okay. And we know that whenever we have to uh, get any value from object, we have to use like dot operator here in terms of here, which is like person dot name. So in the same way, you can use this keyword over here, and you can just say like this dot name. And if you just want to print it out, the other value, which is like this dot age. Okay. So this is how you can also declare a function inside an object. Now, if you have to call this function, how do we call this? It's also one of a property now, right? This is an object which consists of key and value pair. So this becomes like this function, this complete function became also a property of an object now. So if you have to just call the methods, then we can do in the same way, which is like we can directly, as we are printing over here, so we can directly use this as like person and then dot key of the key that we want to access. So what is the key over there? We've given a key as print, and this particular function became the value of this particular print keyword. Okay. Now, if you try to execute this, let me. If you run this particular code, then we'll see like this is also printing us a value, which is, so how do we declare as this is a function, so we have to like use the keys, but as this is representing the function, so to call the function we have to use parentheses over here. We missed that earlier. So you can see that it is giving us a value which is like John and 30. Okay, I hope like this is also clear where we can use the functions inside an object. Okay, but most of the time we just go for utilizing the key value pair, which is like object just like key value pair, which is like property of an object. Okay, so here in terms of new object, let's see one example we'll see over here, and we'll create one class with one object which is known as, let's say, car, and then we can just declare a new keyword and object constructor. Okay, so it says that like provides functionality common to all JavaScript object. So this is like constructor object where we have defined, currently it is like empty object. we do not have anything over here. This object is not having any value right now. It's completely an empty. Here, if you see, like, you cannot create an empty object over here. You have to give some kind of value, key value pair. But I mean, this is like key value pair we have given. You can still create an empty where you can just directly give in this way and then again store the value later on. But this constructor object or object constructor says that if you do not know what property you have to define inside an object, then you can create an empty object, and later on you can store the properties like key value pair inside an object. Okay. So let's say we have, let's say if we want to store like what is the make year for, well, like what is the model of the car? Let's say what is the model of the car, which we say like, let's say Toyota example. Then you can also say like year of the manufacturing. I've just given like 2 value over here. And as we said, like you can also define the object, we can also define the functions here as well. So how do we define a function? In the same way, like you can use the object name that we have declared and then the function name that you want to give, like let's say start example, let's say start function. And we are trying to declare a function and saying that just starting car started example. So what we have done here over here is like we have created an empty object and then later on we are trying to store the key value pair over here. Okay. By using the object reference. This is also known as object reference, or you can say also as a variable, or you can directly say as a car object. Okay, so now how do we print the value over here? Like if you have to again print these values like model and year, then you have to use the this keyword. Let's say, for example, if you have to print the value of the, again here, whenever you see like car dot model, this particular model is now became like key and year became like again key, and Toyota and 2020 is the value for the key, which is like model and year. Okay, so if you have to access the value, you can just declare like this keyword, and if you hover on that, you'll see like all the objects that we have defined over here is mentioned as an like it is taking the reference as this internally. So this will be considered as an object inside the script or file that we are trying to write. Okay. This will basically refer an object. Now let's say you say like model and then this dot here. Okay. And now how do we call this particular function or this let's say if we just have to access model, then how do we do that? We can define it as like console.log, use the object, and then basically use this as a model. And if you have to call the function that you have declared, then you can directly declare it as say car.start function, start method that we have declared. So if you the objects like there are different ways of declaring the object that we have discussed over here, but everything inside the object in all the way however we declare, everything will be entirely same. So if you understood like one of the things which is like key value pair over here and how do we declare the function inside an object, this will be enough to understand all the other type of declaration. There is no difference at all. The only difference will be in when we create a class and how do we create an object. But properties, declaration of properties and method will be again similar inside the class as well. Okay, so let's say if we just execute the code, we can see here first this one is saying car.model, which we have stored it as Toyota, and it has given us a value. And when we call the function that we have declared inside an object, this is first printing as a value, which is like car started, and then the other value as well. It is trying to print us. Okay, which is like Toyota and 2020. So this is another way where we can utilize like object constructor. The third way is that we can use a constructor functions as well. Okay, so third way is known as, here we have given new object, object constructor. We have already object constructor, and this is basically the same. And this is known as constructor function. The third way is to create an object in constructor function. So how do we declare a constructor function? So what should be the syntax and how do we declare a constructor function? So the constructor function are basically one of a special function inside an JavaScript, which is used to create an object with some of the common structure or some of the structure that it has given. And this constructor function basically store the data or assign the properties as we have assigned over here. So this constructor function assign the properties using a keyword called this. Okay, so let's see what is the syntax for utilizing constructor function. So constructor function says that you have to create a function, and then inside this function, this can take any parameter, or so whatever the parameter that you want, whatever the property that you want to store. Let's say here we have a stored model and year. So if you want to store the same value over here, then you can give like parameter 1, then parameter 2, and then so on. As many it is required, as many property it is required, you have to declare first inside the functions as an argument. And now whenever you try to declare or assign this particular value, like this is again this became the property that we want to, this became the value that we want to store inside an object. Now how do we store using the keys? So you can say like this dot key1 equals to whatever the first value whatever the value you are trying to store inside this. In the same way, for the second, it is like, let's say key2 this dot key2 equals to param2, and so on. Okay, so this is how we basically create. And also you can declare method over here as well, if you want to declare inside an object. So this is how the syntax look like for creation of object in constructor function, right? So now what is the real use case? So basically constructor function are useful, like this function is basically useful to create an object, like for creating multiple instances of the same object, of the similar object. Okay, so like what is meant by that? Like we can create a multiple instances, as we have given a name of the function over here, which is like this name. So we can create an object in it, like by utilizing. Hello.
Yeah, Praveen.
Yeah, Praveen.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes.
Praveen.
Yes. Okay. Okay. So utilizing the new keyword, we can create n number of times the object for this, and we can change the property, change the value that we want to store based whenever we create an object. So whenever you create an object, you have to give this this value over here, right? Whatever the value we want to store inside an object for by creating the constructor function. So you can change like different names over here, or different values over here. So this is another way where we declare an object in JavaScript, which is known as constructor function. Now let's see another example, which says that, which basically says that, let's say we will see the similar example. So for the car, which it says that like we have to create a constructor by utilizing the function key and then provide the function name, which is like, let's say car, and then whatever the value you want to insert inside the value, that value you can either you can define it over here as an argument. So let's say we can do it as like model, then we can do it as like year of when it like have been constructed, how many seats are there, okay, inside the car. Now whenever you have to give, like let's say whenever you have to make like this became your value now, like whatever the value you give inside over here in the parenthesis, this became your value. Now your object says that you have to also define a keys, right? Keys to map the values. So one way is like, if you want to just use the same name, whatever you have given as over here as an argument, then you have to use a keyword called, let's say same keyword called this, and then you can store the same value. If you want to do it in another way, then you have to do it in this way. Like how do we declare in other programming language? This will not be able to support over here. So this says that whenever you have to declare any value, either it is of the same name or it is of the different name, you have to use there like this keyword to declare the key, declare the key inside an object. Okay, so whenever you create an object, in constructor function way by declaring the function with the function name, and if you're trying to give the argument, whether you are trying to give the argument or not, let's say if you just want to declare inside this itself, like let's say wheel equals to, I'm just giving some random number over here, right? So if you just want to declare it in this way as well, you can directly declare. If you want to give this wheel as an argument as well, and you say that, okay, I'll be able to change it out later on. So you can declare over here as well. Okay. But if you want to directly store inside the object as a property, you can do the same by utilizing again this dot wheel equals to 4. So we know that like the wheels in the car will be like 4 only. So you can make it as a static, like common for all the objects that you'll be creating. So whatever the value, hard-coded value that you insert over there here will be considered as the same for all the other object that we create for this particular function. Okay, now you can also say that like this dot seat, this dot seats equals to seat. We can also just okay. So if you see like in this way, it says that could not find name year 1 domain year. Okay, so you will have to use this keyword, even though if you want to try to declare the keys as different than the argument that you have declared over here. Okay, now you can also declare something called as like function, which is saying that, let's say car info, and then we can declare a function over here. And we can print all the values by using again this keyword. Whenever you have to print the properties of the object inside a function, we know that we have to utilize this keyword. So we can use in this way, like this keyword and then the key that you are trying to store. Okay. Now it says that the use case for this is like whenever we have to create multiple instance of the same object, then you can use this. So let's say what is meant by this. So let's see how do we declare. First is like, let's say car1, and you can say that how do we create an object over here is by using new and then the function name that you have declared. And now you have to give these many arguments that you have given over here. Like you can also remove the argument. I'll show you that example as well. But this is how we declared. So let's say you say that Maruti is a make model. Year is, let's say, 2021. And then seats are like, it's a 6. So this is one object that we have created, right? For the function or the or like the constructor function that we have created over here. Now you can also create second time by using again the other object variable. So now this particular variable became your object. Okay. Now we can say like some other values, which is like Honda and 23 and let's say 4. So this is how you can create a multiple instances for the same object or same function, like constructor function. Okay, and now if you try to print it out, if you try to execute, this will give you the different values, like in terms of whatever we have executed, whatever we have performed over here. So you can say, so we can see here it has, like we have to call the value. We have to call the functions as well. So car info for the first and car2.carinfo for the second. And why are we declaring this parenthesis? Because we are calling the functions that we have written inside an object. If you just have to call the property, we can directly use like, let's say, car1.model, which we have to give inside the console because it is not printing anything. So we have to give inside like car1.model. And then you can also print in the same way, just like car2.model. Example. So whenever you have to get the value of the keys, you can directly use the key name by utilizing dot operator. Whenever you have to call the function, you have to call in a function, which is like using the parenthesis. Okay. So this is another way where we say like, if you see the output is like for first 2021, 4 and 6. So what is this 4 came here, right? What is this 4 here? So we have declared a hard-coded value inside a function. That particular value is being sent to all the objects that you create. And that is what we are trying to access over here. So this particular value that we have not utilized inside an argument and declared inside a variable, and that we want to print for this particular print inside this particular function. So this will be given to all the objects that we create. Okay, and then the value that we have declared over here, which is like for Honda 2023. And when we try to get the keys, we are just getting it in this way. Okay, any doubt over here?
No problem.
So
No
it
problem.
is clear. So it is clear, right? Like you can try to practice it out as well. But these are the things like in terms of test automation will be very less used. But when we say like we have to create, we have to understand the JavaScript. We also have to understand how to create an object inside the JavaScript and so on. So that is why like we are trying to learn these kind of things. Even if you see like the class concept over here, right? Class is not similar here in terms of JavaScript. How do we declare in other programming language? So the declaration is same, but the utilization will be entirely different. Like we'll not be going for whenever we generate a framework, basically we'll not be going for utilizing like the inheritance concept. There is some other way that we can that we can see in the framework, but we'll see that in the later, like when we start the program. Now, the other way is known as in the class. In the class way is like a simple, you declare a class and then create an object. So these classes have been introduced in ES6 version of the JavaScript, which is also known as ECMAScript 6. Okay, ECMAScript 6, which has been introduced in 2015. So before that, there were no concept of class in the JavaScript, and it has been introduced in 2015 in JavaScript. So we know that like what is the use of class? Like we basically create a class and then inside the class, we can declare multiple values either by using constructor or you can directly declare the values. So let's say what is the syntax over here in terms of creating an object utilizing the class. So it is again simple, where we declare a class keyword to create a class inside like in the JavaScript. Whenever we have to create a class in JavaScript, we have to use the keyword called class, and then you give some class name. Okay, and then parenthesis. So this is that we have started creation of a class. Now, whenever you have to declare a variable, basically in general, what do we do is that we create a constructor in class to initialize the value. So what is the use of constructor is? Constructor basically used to initialize the value inside a class, initialize the value for the variable or the property that we declare. Now, if we see in Java, then we have to create a constructor by utilizing the same name of the class that we have declared, right? The same name. So let's say if we have given here class name, then to create an object, we have to go like this to create a constructor in Java. Okay. Whereas if you have to create the constructor inside JavaScript, then we just have to use a keyword called constructor. We do not have to use the same name of the class. To create a constructor in JavaScript, we have to use keyword called constructor, and then whatever the parameter that you want to store inside the constructor. Let's say param1, parameter 2, and so on. And then again, this constructor is also one of a function, right? This is constructed also one of a function. It's known as a constructor function, right? So that function will have all the properties inside the curly braces. And now we have gone through here saying that whenever we create a constructor function, the value that we have to, or value or property that we have to store, will be storing in by utilizing this keyword. So you can see when like in this way, to create an object, we have to store the value using, let's say, this dot, let's say key1 equals to param1, this dot key2 equals to param2, and so on. We can declare various number, like n number of parameters based on our requirement. So whenever we have to create a class and in a constructor inside a class, so to create a constructor, we basically have to use the keyword called constructor, and whatever the properties that we have to define inside the constructor, you can define using this keyword. We know that what is this keyword over here, right? So this keyword is basically an object reference, which refers like what inside the class, inside the file, that this is considered as an also object. Okay, so to add or to print the value, we know that we have to use dot operator. So that is why we are trying to use like this dot key1 equals to the value. Again, this dot key2 equals to value, and so right. Inside class, this like again class. So you can also declare method over here. If needed, like we can also declare method over here, and then we can close the class by ending the curly braces of the class that we have declared over here. So everything inside the class, whatever we declared inside the class for that particular class will go inside the starting curly braces and ending curly braces. Okay. And whenever we have to create an object for this, we basically have to use a new keyword to create an object and then just give the class name that we have declared over. So this is if there are any arguments that we have declared inside a constructor, then you can give the arguments. If you have just used in hard-coded a manner, or you have directly declared inside some of the values, then you do not have to declare the parameter over here. Okay, so this in general like same sort of things in other programming language, and this object you have to store inside a variable so that it will become a reference part. So this is how we basically create in any other programming language the class, but only the difference is like in terms of constructor creation. So to create a constructor, in other programming language, we have to use the class name, whereas in JavaScript, you can directly use a keyword called constructor to create a constructor. Okay. Now, this became like the syntax. Now, if you see, now if you try to see like the same method that we have declared over here in terms of declaring the car, model, year, seats, how can we do that in terms of class generation? How can we create the similar by utilizing the class, right? So let's say we say like, so to generate a class or to declare a class inside a JavaScript file, you don't have to like declare this in an other class format. Like you have to create a new. No, you can declare inside the same file as well. So it won't say you like any kind of. It will not give you any kind of error that you are trying to declare the class inside a file which is not having the same class name and so on. There's no concept of like whenever you create a class inside a JavaScript file, that means you have to declare the same name, same file name of the as it is similar to the class name. No. Okay, so you can declare the class over here. So whenever we declare class, we use a keyword called class and then give the name of the class and then start the curly braces. And now whatever we have to write will go inside these two curly braces, starting and ending. Are you people following the session?
Yes,
Yes,
Praveen.
Praveen.
Any doubt or any confusion over here?
No, Praveen.
Okay. Let me know like if you get stuck at any point of time in terms of understanding. I'll repeat it again. So to create a constructor, we say like we have to use a keyword called constructor, and then whatever the argument that you want to give inside the constructor. So let's say I'm trying to give like model, year, and seat, which is like similar to this one, similar to this constructor function. And we know like inside a constructor, how do we declare like properties, or how do we initialize the variable or the value that we are trying to give inside an argument, like give inside a constructor function. So we use like this, and then we can use like either you can use like same name or you can use some other name as well, name of the variable here. So that will whatever the value or the variable that you use over here will become a key. So if you say like model one, then model one will be key. If you are declaring as a model, then the model will become a key for the object that we'll be creating later for the class. Okay, then we have to use again this dot, say year equals to year. So what we are trying to do here inside a constructor is we are trying to initialize the value. So where will we give the value to initialize like this particular keys? So whenever we create an object, at the time of creating an object, whatever the argument that you give inside a constructor, you have to provide as a parameter whenever you create an object for this. We'll see just in a minute of time. And then you can say like this dot seats equals to seats. Okay, we can close the constructor over here. And as we said, like we can like optionally, you can also declare the method. So let's say declare one particular method or function, which is like start. You can also give function keyword. There is no harm in that. And then we can say just like this. So this is that whenever you create a constructor, a method, accessor, or property was so what it is saying that whenever you try to declare any value or any method inside a class, you can basically remove the function keyword as well. Okay, so you can directly give the function name that you want to insert inside a class. But whenever you want to uh, declare any method outside the class, let's say start. This is again an optional, but it will automatically take the keyword as function. Whenever you declare in this way, like you give the parenthesis, it will consider your value as a function. So it says that inside the function or inside the class, whenever you want to declare any kind of function, there is no need to give the function key over here. It will automatically take this as a method inside a car class. Okay, so let's say if we want to declare a method or declare a method inside a class, then we can just use the method name and whatever we want to declare inside the method that we can utilize. So let's say we will not say like it started. We'll try to print the value that we have declared over here. So how do we print here the value? So whenever this is also one of an object, right? This became an object now. So constructor here became an object which consists of user like keys and values. Basically, this is known as constructor function in JavaScript, which consists of again a key value pair, which is used to initialize the parameters that you have given over here, or initialize the value that you have used inside a constructor. Now, whenever we create an object, let's say for example, let's see it. So whenever we create an object for car, it says that you have to give some of the arguments. So whatever the parameter that you pass over here, this will directly go to the constructor and initialize your value. So initially, whenever you create object, whatever the value you give inside this will go to the constructor and make this as this particular key will place it at first argument that you give inside here. So let's say Toyota, and then making of the car is 2024. Seats are 6. So here what happened is like this will check whether we have any constructor defined over here inside a class. If there is, then it will go and sit over there. Like for the model, this will become now the parameter that we have declared it as a Toyota. This year became now 2024, and then seats have been replaced with 6, the number that we have given. Now we know that whenever we have declared any property outside of the function, to access that, we have to use a keyword called this, and then we can use model, comma, this dot here, this dot seats. Okay, just to access the property that we have declared inside a function, but inside a class. But if you have if you have declared any variable over here, let's say let wheel equals to 4. If you just want to access this particular value, there is no need of defining this keyword because it knows that we have declared a variable over here. Okay, so this is how we write a class, we declare a constructor, and we create a method inside a class. Now, to create an object, again, you can create a number of objects for this. So whenever you create an object, let's say you define it as class car example. And then to get the value, any property, if you want to access from, you can use like directly this class car dot model, class car dot year, class car dot seat. And if you want to call the class, call the method that we have declared inside the class, then we have to use like the variable name or the object name that we have defined over here, and then dot the function name. And to call a function or method, you have to use parentheses over here. Now, if you try to execute this one, this will basically give you the result that we are R has already been declared. Yes. Did we use R1 also? We have used. So, okay, let's try to execute the same code. You can see the value over here. Let's change it to then we can see the differences. So it has printed first the model name, which is like class. Which is like BMW, and then all the values that we have declared inside the class. So we have declared a variable which is not required to access with the this dot will, because it do not comes under the object. This like the property of basically the method. So this is how we declare a class in JavaScript. And this is how we basically generate the class as well. And this is also known as class constructor. That means we are creating a class object. That means we are creating a class, and then we are defining the object for the class. Okay. The last way became the left out is like factory functions, which we'll discuss in the next session, which is like factory functions. Again, it is like similar to the class that we have over here. It is again similar to the class. It is also similar to the function constructor that we declared. So what did we do here is, in terms of function construct, like constructor function or function constructor, what did we do is like we have initialized the value by utilizing this keyword, right? Whereas in terms of factory functions is that all the values, a function which will return an object, a function which will basically return an object is known as factory functions. Okay, that we'll see in a later. So instead of writing it in this way, we can directly return over there by using the return keyword, and then it will go inside this part. So this will become a basic. This will be again replaced with the comma. So we'll see in the next session how do we declare the constructor. How do we create an object using factory functions. Okay. So this is it about the objects. How do we declare an object in JavaScript? What are different types of objects